What's up, Ozarks? It's Chris Pinson here in the Ozarks First Sports Digital Desk. And we got to talk about what is going on with college football and the head coaching firings at the moment. Today's October 13th, and as of today, 7 coaches have been fired from their various schools. And you know what? A grand total of $93 million is owed to these coaches. 7 people, $93 million. I think I chose the wrong profession because let's be real. Making big money because you get fired, that's every worker's dream, right? Yeah, they let me go down there. Well, what happened? Just wasn't happy with my performance. Not up to par. So how much they pay you? Anywhere from $2.4 million to $50 million. What? Tell me you wouldn't love that. Because guess what? You'd be laughing all the way to the bank while you're sipping on the beach somewhere drinking margaritas, right? Well, that's what's going on right now in college football. The latest casualty, of course, is James Franklin, Penn State's long-tenured coach, who's been there for 11 seasons. This guy had a record of more than 100 wins and about 40 losses there at Penn State. However, while that he brought that program back to prominence, while he got Penn State to several big-time bowl wins, a lot of 8, 9, 10-plus win seasons, his record against Ohio State and Michigan, the 2 teams that have essentially run that conference since Franklin was in it, has been in it, is like 2-17, 3-17 at the best. James Franklin right now is, to me, what Tony Dungy was for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tony Dungy got fired by the Bucs the year before they won the Super Bowl because they just couldn't get past the Rams or another team that was standing in their way that always seemed to get the better of them, that always seemed to win those big, crucial NFC playoff games. That's kind of who James Franklin is. James Franklin is the guy that's righted the ship there at Penn State for over a decade, providing them sustained success, top recruiting classes, big bowl wins, all things that bring your program notoriety and help banish what became the dark ages back in 2012 when they got blown up by the NCAA for all of these scandals and sexual things that happened during the Paterno years. So now you fire James Franklin after going 3-3 this early stretch of the season. You started 3-0. You were living up to the hype of being a college football playoff-bound team. Then you lost 3 games in a row. Most notably to UCLA, who was 0-4 and didn't have a win on the season, who had never led in a game this year. And then you blew it against Northwestern at home again. And the Wildcats are terrible as well. You lost 22-21 to them. The only loss you could accept of the 3 in a row was to Oregon, who has been a college playoff type team for what? Better part of a decade more, really? I mean, they've always had the money, the speed, the prowess. So losing to them as a top-ranked team, not a big concession. But losing to UCLA and to Northwestern, yeah, I'm not surprised the trigger finally got pulled on James Franklin. Okay, but others along this list. We're talking Mike Gundy. Again, longtime staple at Oklahoma State. He finally got fired this year. In September, last month, his buyout, $15 million. Sam Pittman in Arkansas. He got fired last month. His buyout, $9.8. Deshaun Foster, the UCLA coach, who didn't even make it to the Penn State game. He got fired in September. He got owed $6 million. Brent Pry by Virginia Tech, fired in September, $6 million buyout. Trent Bray, Oregon State's head coach. He just got fired as well this weekend. He was owed $4 million. And lastly, Trent Dilfer. He just got fired yesterday as well from UAB, and he was owed $2.4 million. Collectively, that's $93 million. $93 million among those 7 coaches. Now, the million-dollar question is, what does this mean for everybody else? Because if you've got high-profile jobs, Penn State, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Virginia Tech, and heck, we'll throw UCLA in there. That's 5 jobs right there, high-profile, major expectation programs. UCLA hasn't really been great in a long time, but still, it's UCLA. The name has sold itself. But down south of us in Arkansas, guess who's running that ship? who made his head coaching debut as the interim guy for right now. It's the former Arkansas head coach and former Missouri State head coach Bobby Petrino. And guess who just happens to be here at Missouri State? His son, the offensive coordinator, Nick Petrino, his son-in-law, LD Scott, the defensive coordinator, and his other son-in-law, Ryan Beard, who is the head coach of Missouri State. All three of these guys were on the staff when Bobby Petrino was here for a couple years before he got hired as the OC at Arkansas. Now, here's a funny story. Yesterday, after the firing was announced of James Franklin and his $50 million buyout was put out there, I text Bears head coach Ryan Beard, and I said, brother, if you ever get fired from a coaching gig and they got to pay you $50 million or somewhere in that realm, I said, drinks on you. And he laughed at my comment and wrote back and said, yeah, I'll see you in Vegas. Plenty of rounds on me. I mean, that's the craziest part about this. You have so much money flying off the shelf to buy these head coaches to bring them to your program. And when they don't work out, then you got to pay them a bunch of money because you already signed the dotted line. And guess what? Great lawyers, great agents, airtight seal on those exit clauses, okay? Airtight. That's why all these guys are laughing. Now, of course, the Dan Mullen situation in Florida is kind of similar to James Franklin. Before I came out here to Springfield, Missouri, I was in Gainesville, Florida. I worked there from 2020 to December of 22. So I've been there. I know how this game goes. Okay, Dan Mullen was like 31-6 at Florida, or 31-11, something like that. Dan Mullen had come in after 3 different head coaches tried to bring Florida back to prominence post-Urban Meyer. Dan Mullen came in, boom, took Florida right back to the top, bringing them on the pedestal back to the nation. Most notably, they won the Orange Bowl. In 2020, they won the Orange Bowl. Everything was cool. But then things started to unravel. 2021, that's when you had the season that became a complete blunder for them. You know, that's when Dan Mullen lost his team. That's when everything came unraveled. And that is when Florida decided to fire him after a 6-7 season. Okay? 6-7. They fired Dan Mullen. And just like this scenario, James Franklin got fired after going 3-3. Franklin came in after Bill O'Brien was there for a hot second. Then he left for the Houston Texans job. And James Franklin came in and he became really the guy that for the last decade or more brought Penn State back to prominence, brought them out of the dark age of the sexual scandal and assaults, brought them to, hey, they're national title contenders. And as everybody has said, I've seen, last year they were just a few plays away from being in the national title game. Dan Mullen can say the same thing. Dan Mullen knows that 2020 squad he had with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney, man, they were just one possession away from beating Alabama in the SEC title game in Atlanta and maybe making a trip to the national championship. That's how good that team was. I was there, seen it. But the fallout afterwards, where they had such a down season, players not being held accountable, all kind of little things coming out that showed the cracks in the foundation of that program. Well, Florida said, you know what? We can't have this. We're going the wrong direction. See ya. So they had to pay Dan Mullen $6 million up front and $1 million a year for the next 6 years. His buyout was $12 million. And now the Florida Gators are in that same situation because now they hired Billy Napier when I was still there in Gainesville. And Napier hasn't done anything close to what Mullen did. Winning-wise, notoriety-wise, success-wise. And yet Scott Strickland, the AD there, has still kept him on the payroll. One thing and one big belief is because this season, Billy Napier, if he gets fired during this year, is owed $20 million. So Florida is still paying Dan Mullen $1 million a year for the next 2 years, and they would have to pay Billy Napier $20 million on top of that. Like I said, it is great to be a college football coach at a major program and get fired. Because sure, you're sad it didn't work out. Sure, the fan base might hate you, but you're laughing all the way to the bank. And right now, this is where we're at. This is where we're at in college football, where players are commanding ridiculous salaries or NILs, and coaches are getting paid out the wazoo because programs, athletic departments, fan bases, boosters are dying to get their just due. They want their program back in the spotlight. They want their program playing in the biggest games. They want their program winning the biggest games to get to the college football playoff that's now 12 teams. You can't blame them, but when the sour grapes come and the resentment comes and the second guessing and the and the ha's, it's a bad place to be for everybody but the head coach, because they're going to make out like bandits walking out of a bank. Free to go, kind of like it's Ocean's 11. The ending scene there at the casino where George Clooney's guys all take the money and walk out of the building untouched. That's pretty much what we're in right now. That is college football coaching in a nutshell. Instead of Veni Vidi Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. I came, I saw, I got fired. And oh yeah, I got paid to get fired. So right now, if you're Penn State, so many people have talked about, oh, who's out there? How about Cignetti from Indiana? In 2 years, he's turned that program around. That'd be my first call. There's also a guy by the name of Matt Rule. For some reason, people think that guy can easily come in and take over for Franklin, and they won't miss a beat. That is a terrible decision. Matt Rule was great at Baylor, did wonderful things at Baylor. But then he went to the Carolina Panthers and flamed out as bad as Nick Saban, or worse, because he got fired sooner. Now he's at Nebraska, so he's in the Big Ten where Penn State plays. That still means you got to play Michigan and Ohio State pretty much every year. Or at least you got to play him in the Big Ten championship game, right? Matt Rule hasn't done squat in Nebraska, okay? He's got all the money, all the resources, just like Scott Frost had when he was there a few years ago. Matt Rule's team is not doing anything worthwhile. They haven't had 10-plus wins. They haven't made a Big Ten title game, haven't really cracked the top 25 hardly at all, if any. And that team is not anywhere close to the expectation Nebraska fans and boosters want it to be. And Penn State supporters or people on the internet with college football insight and know-how are saying this guy should come in and take over? Matt Rule's like 2-20 something against the top 25. He's like 1 something or 0 something against the top 10. And you think that guy's going to come in and do better than James Franklin, who frankly wasn't that great in the big game? Hence why he's the Tony Dungy of Penn State. He has never been able to get that team over the hump to win the big game. And that's why Penn State is looking for their next John Gruden. That's what the Bucs did. They hired John Gruden the year after Tony Dungy and the Bucs lost to the Rams. And guess what? Gruden came in, boom, 2003 Super Bowl champions. Wasted the Raiders in that game. Dominant defense, one of the best of all time, hands down. After that, though, the Bucs really didn't do a whole lot. And a lot of people say that was Dungy's team that Gruden took to the top. And that's true, because afterwards, the Bucs really never got close again. But John Gruden gets the credit for winning the Buccaneers' first Super Bowl as a franchise. So now, with all that's going on, you got to wonder how this is going to play out. Here in the Ozarks, Bobby Petrino is a name everybody knows. He's now down there in Arkansas. And again, his entire male family tree basically is sitting right here in Springfield. Ryan Beard's your head coach. L.D. Scott, his brother-in-law, the son-in-law of Petrino, is the D coordinator. And Nick Petrino, Bobby's son, blood son, is the OC here. And that guy is just like his dad, a whiz-bang, gadget, maniac, miracle maker with an offense. So the question is, here in the Ozarks, if Bobby Petrino happens to finish out strong this year, and most likely Arkansas rehires him as their permanent head coach, who from this coaching staff is going? Because I guarantee you, when Bobby takes over as head coach, he could take over play calling or keep it. Wouldn't be surprised. But he could also elevate his son, Nick, to that next stratosphere of coaching. To go from a small-time FBS program, like Missouri State is right now, having just joined the conference, having nowhere near the bankroll Arkansas has or the resources. Hey, keep it in the family, right? Who wouldn't want to take that jump from, hey, brother-in-law, you're my head coach, but you know, your father-in-law, my dad, he's calling me. He wants me to come be the OC. And guess what? Ryan Beard would go, brother, we are going to miss the heck out of you, but love you, man. Enjoy Fayetteville. Go kick butt. Because that's the kind of guy Ryan Beard is. And LD Scott, Nick's other brother-in-law, would say the same thing. But again, with Bobby down there having a chance to prove himself and get that permanent job, could see some major turnover here at Missouri State's coaching staff. Wouldn't be surprised. It just makes sense. You feel me? Those dots, not hard to connect. But right now, college football is in a very unique place where everything about the game is about money, money, money. It's about results, results, results. Not that it hasn't, but right now more so than ever, to be a college football coach at a premier program today, you can lose your job because your team didn't do well, and there's a chance you're going to get a major payday. That is the dream of every employee out there in the world. If you could show up, get paid a good sum, even a princely sum, to do and achieve great things, but fall short of that and still leave that job with a major payday, who wouldn't want to be that person? Who wouldn't want to be that person? Hey, do me a favor. We got a lot more stuff coming up here on the Ozarks First Sports Digital Desk. Make sure you stay here and tune in all the time to see what is going on in the sports world, because I got the answers and I got a few thoughts on it as well. We'll catch you next time here on the Ozarks Sports Digital Desk.